Hey guys, Youth Yields here. Today we're going to be going over the the portfolio for the week. So yeah, let's start off. There was a lot of earnings this week, and as a result, a lot of the market was kind of in a weird spot. You can see Amazon down 12%, Nvidia down 3%, Microsoft down almost 7%, Meta down like almost 8%, Google down 4.5%, so on and so forth. So a lot of big name companies did not do very well, I'd say. But there's also some ones that did very well, like Walmart did 10% up, Apple 7% up, Berkby up almost 6%, JPM 5.5%, so on and so forth. Very similar story every week. It's very mixed, but overall the S&P actually did not deliver on a 7-week look back. So the last week, we actually went down 0.16%. So there's that. Another thing to take a look at is our total portfolio. So we're actually up 0.31%, which is super nice. Composer was actually up 0.82%, which is kind of surprising to me. And then M1 Finance 0.49%, and Webull up 10%. More on Webull later, but you can see here how we're looking total portfolio versus SPY. You can see our total portfolio for the year since year to date is 1.39, whereas SPY is 1.34. So we're barely beating it there, and most of the gains here are coming from February, which, to be fair, just started. So we'll see how that continues. But we are actually still beating the S&P 500. You can see 15.98, almost 16, versus 15.38. So, and I was looking at this yesterday. Our M1 Finance portfolio since inception, basically since May 19th, it's actually done 20%. So almost 20% in the last year, whereas S&P 500 in the same time period has done only 15.38%. So really cool. Now, moving on into Composer first. This one, I know it's going to be crazy, but I'm liquidating everything. Okay. First of all, I had a crazy timing with the whole silver and gold crash. Unfortunately, this best year sort was completely in that. And I lost nearly 20% in one day. So there's that. There's been some underperformance since the start of the year on this one, and some other ones. But the main reason I'm doing this is actually not because of those reasons I just listed, but rather I am going to try something new. So first of all, you can see on our current portfolio I have listed here from the ICDB, you can see the OOS date. Now this is very important because this basically shows us the last time that this strategy was modified. You'll notice one thing. All but one took place in the last 2 months of 2025, and all of them were in 2025. What does that mean? First of all, the most important thing that means is there's not enough data, right? Even the Beam algo, which was doing very well recently, is above, I think it was above 1.0 backtest OOS ratio. We're actually sitting down, like this was like 178 or something like that, 173. The reason this is important, first of all, because we have limited backtest performance on the OOS, what actually tends to happen is it starts to deviate, because basically we have so few days to use against that if the next day it goes up by a lot or down by a lot, it actually sways the entire result set of all of the OOS metrics completely, right? Because you got to think you have less samples, so it's easier to actually move the sample average, if that makes sense. In addition to that, just having faith in the algorithm is another thing, right? I'm not saying any of these are particularly overfit. Just FYI. But the problem is they don't have enough data to make that assumption. And so one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to full port into the Holy Grail. You'll see this investment here. Now, if I go, some of you might remember that if you've watched the video several weeks ago at this point, that I did test whether or not the Holy Grail and TQQQ for the long run and some other strategies that I thought were decent were actually performing decent. Now, the good news is they did, and by a decent I mean the deviation score. So how well the backtest actually lined up with the live in the same time period. So not back looking, but both on the same days. And these two did very well. And there's a large reason for that. Most of the time, these are holding one ticker, right? So TQQQ, for example. And so those tend to pretty much stay very on average with each other because the number of trades per year, you can come see that here on the average trades per year, is extremely low. We're talking about 43, 45 versus something like over here, 474, 792, for example. And so there's a lot less chance. That's one reason. Second reason is I'm understanding now that to really get a lot of performance, we have to put a lot of risk, right? That's the whole adage, like high risk, high reward. So that's another thing, right? With this one, it's basically saying, okay, since 2008 or 2007, my bad, that you're going to get a 61% CAGR with 11% drawdown. Not saying that this is overfit, but the chance of that happening realistically is pretty low, right? So that's another thing. But most importantly, out of all of these points is the OOS date, right? The last time it was modified. You'll notice here, the Holy Grail is actually one of the oldest strategies on Composer, at least that I was able to get on this database. And you can see this was from 2022, July 20th, right? Very long time in Composer's like ecosystem, right? So it's one of the first ones available on here that is actually high performing. You can see the backtest to OS ratio is 0.73, and its overguard score is actually pretty low. And some other stuff here. Now, obviously, the volatility and the max drawdown are quite high, but that's okay. Again, going back to the high risk, high reward, that's kind of a given. So, ultimately, I would say the most famous one is TQQ FTLT, and you can see that is also very old. Back to 2023 is where I could find the first post of this one. But the Holy Grail, first of all, is older. And it actually does fit my risk profile a little bit more, right? Less risk. Where it's like, it's not by much, but it is something. So that's another thing. I think for me, I'd rather get this amount than I would the other one. And again, because it's older. And so, yeah. I want to show you guys a photo just here in a second. I'll pull that up right now. So there's this photo from a Discord user, a part of our Discord community, which has been running a version of a version of the Holy Grail simplified. So if I go here and look up Holy Grail, and apply and go over here and sort by OS date, you can see this one is back to 2023 March 1st, right? It's done very well, but arguably I'd say for me, I am more interested in the other one because first of all, it's older and there's some other stuff here, right? But look at this, right? The correlation between these two is also very high. So if I take this one and just do Holy Grail and apply and put these in Maestro, this is an easy way to see the correlation. There's another way on ICDB, but well, I guess we'll have to do that. So what we'll do is we'll come over to this one. We'll go to correlation matrix, and we'll come over here and say Holy Grail simp. Go to apply, wait for it to load. Maybe. While that's loading, I should probably make my point as well. I'm not sure if it's going to load. There's probably some error. The point is, look at this. He's put in $3,000, and I believe this person typically does just one lump sum deposit. They don't typically put in more and more money as time goes on. But you can see here, he's tripled his money, right? Since June of 2024 to today, January. So 2 years running, he's tripled his money. I'm not saying I'm going to have the same performance as him, but the point that's really important is there's history. This guy has been running it for 2 years. There's the OOS date for 2.5 years, right? And so it's stuff like that, or 3.5 years or something like that. And so it's the point I'm trying to make here is there's just a lot of history and data on this to make a actual wise decision and say, okay, this is the strategy I want to go into. I would not recommend this strategy for people that are about to retire, though, because the high max drawdown. So my plan, probably as it gets closer to retirement or whatever, if I want to lower my risk, is probably start to shift into where is it? Probably start to shift into this one, which is kind of a similar version of the TQQQ for the long run, but it's an all market one, and the drawdown's actually pretty well. Also, to give a frame of reference, I'm going on this point a long time, but so this is the last thing I'll leave off on for Composer. But you'll notice that if we look at max drawdown in the same time period, this is SPY and this is the strategy. So we're taking on a little bit more risk for such a larger, CAGR. So I think it's worth it. You can see that 159% versus 15% in the same time period. This goes back to 2011. So that's actually one thing to point out. It doesn't go back to 2007 or 2008. So that kind of sucks. But there's other ways to test that. But I'm not going to go into that in this video. But anyhow, moving on, going to the M1 Finance portfolio, you can see for the week that we're up a little bit. So let's take a look real quick. So consumer staples up 7%. The main one there is PepsiCo. I think they had really good earnings. There's something about it battling like diet pills or something on their earnings. I think they mentioned that. John Deere. And last but not least, energy, where we have the most coming from ExxonMobil. Then we have worst performing, so semiconductors. The biggest one there was AMD. Despite them going kind of up like the last 2 weeks, they had, not the best luck this week. So, other one we had is technology. So I touched base on this about Google and Microsoft, and last but not least, on the consumer discretionary, the biggest one there was from Amazon, down 12%. So going into the activity in terms of dividends, I believe we did get one dividend since the last video, and that's AMT for $3.44. There's that. And in terms of unrealized gains, so AMD, despite that, still up 89%. Very nice. Google just below 100%, which it was. In terms of the losers, we're actually only down to 5, and you can see Microsoft down actually quite a bit. It's down 12.5%, which is kind of crazy to think about. And Amazon there as well, gone down. MasterCard and Visa. We talked about those in other videos in AMT. Really, the only one I'm worried about, I'd say, is probably AMT. But I'm not going to do much about it yet. Another thing I was thinking about doing, by the way, is potentially yearly, like, what do you call it? I don't know, where I basically switch out, rebalancing, right? Where I switch out some stocks that I no longer think are going to be good for the next year, for example, and I just do that yearly or something. I haven't decided what yet that I want to get rid of. I would have to take a look seriously across the portfolio, but yeah, I was thinking maybe doing that every year. Anyhow, last but not least, the one I'm most upset about, and that is MSTZ. So there was an absolutely crazy week this week. First of all, the first 3 days, pretty tame in terms of MSTZ. Obviously, it was very nice going up and up and up. But on Thursday, we went up 34%. The main reason there is Bitcoin went down to 60-something thousand. And then that same day after hours, MSTR reported earnings. And somehow we didn't do very well. I don't know how, because their earnings were actually very all over the place. And I actually listened to the live earnings call. They said they made some money on their software, which was a very small amount of money comparatively to the rest of their Bitcoin treasury. And they also, it was a lot of, ooh, hold on, hodl, or whatever they say. So I really don't know how this actually went up. And taking a look at it now, after our hours did also go up slightly. I don't know how, but yeah. Nonetheless, I'm still holding out. Hopefully it does decent. In fact, I think it went down a little bit since Friday. No, it's about the same price. Actually went up a little bit. So we'll see how it performs. They are still under their average price, just FYI. So we'll see if this is just, I thought maybe the earnings call would maybe boost it up a little bit, but not 52% on MSTZ side. That's 25, 26%. So again, I don't know. We'll see. Just to give you a frame of reference though, after hours on Thursday, so when the market was closed, I actually think this position was, for the first time in a long time, it was actually positive. So it kind of hurts. Because, yeah, first time in a long time it was actually positive. It's like almost exactly positive. But now we're down back to 51% down, which is crazy. You can see the massive fall we had here. So 1,288. Whereas, yeah, I guess $10 over the total cost here. And then it dropped like an anvil. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, that is it for me. Hopefully everything goes good. I'm going to try to stick to this. I know I said that about the last one, but I really have good faith in the Holy Grail because it's such a long thing. It's going to be hard for me. I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. I think it's just because it's a lot more volatile. But I just also have to keep in mind it's only a little bit more volatile, realistically speaking, than SPY is. So we'll see how it performs, and I'll let you guys know as always. But yep, as always, I wish you guys a wealthy future.